Okay, so let's continue the discussion on carbohydrates. So from the previous discussion, we know that carbohydrates are composed of sugars, starches, and fibers. Okay, so the general formula of carbohydrates is CH2O with a subscript N. So it means N number of CH2O. Okay. So we have simple carbohydrates, monosaccharides meaning usara ka sugar. We have disaccharides meaning 2 sugars, and we have complex sugar called the polysaccharides or many sugars. Okay. For monosaccharides, you have glucose, fructose, galactose. So these are examples of monosaccharides. Glucose is what we know as the dextrose, and it's called the blood sugar. Okay. So glucose is the primary fuel for the body. And this is found in all disaccharides and polysaccharides. Okay. Now we have fructose. It's the fruit sugar, which is found in fruit, honey, and syrup. And in the body, it's converted to glucose. Okay. So you have fructose taken in by the diet, but it's converted to glucose inside the body. And then we have galactose, which is part of lactose. So this is found in milk. And again, everything is converted into glucose, all the monosaccharides, because the glucose, as you know, it's the primary fuel for the body. So we need glucose, not fructose, not galactose. We have, for disaccharides, we have maltose, we have sucrose, and lactose. So sucrose, it's the table sugar. It's composed of glucose and fructose. Lactose, it's composed of glucose and galactose. So if you notice, naji glucose, okay? It's present in all disaccharides. And maltose, you have glucose and glucose. Okay? So again, if you construct a molecule, you need to dehydrate, and if you break a molecule, you need to if you construct a molecule, you need to dehydrate, and if you this is what you call as condensation. So see, na-remove ang water, and if you break a molecule, so gikan ani, if you break a molecule, you need to hydrolyze, so you need to add water. Okay? So for complex carbohydrates, mo na niyang gitawag na to og polysaccharides. So like the glycogen, starches, and fibers. Okay, so we discussed glycogen and starch already, right? Okay, so ang glycogen, these are long chains of glucose. These are found in animals. And these are stored in the liver and muscles. Okay, so ang glycogen class is important in maintaining blood glucose. This is also an important source of quick energy, especially during exercise. Okay? So, that is why, kanang kung mag-exercise ta, we need kanang muscles ba para mas lagsik ang pag-exercise, because that's the source of quick energy. Okay? We have starch. These are long chains of glucose found in plants, like in cereal grains. So, wheat, rice, corn, those contain starch. Okay? And then we also have fiber. So fiber is mostly indigestible nga CHO. So compared to starch and glycogen, this one is indigestible. This is present in gums, lignin. Okay? So these are components of plant cell walls. Okay? These are abundant in whole grains. We have soluble and insoluble fibers. Okay. So, ang insoluble, these are non-viscous. Ang soluble are viscous. So, ang viscous kay kanang unsa ka piso ba kanang unsa ka kusog mo flow, di ba? Non-viscous, dili siya mo flow. Ang viscous are katong mo flow. So, in the digestion of carbohydrates class, it starts in the mouth. So, you have salivary amylase in the mouth. And in the stomach, the digestion does not happen in the stomach. It's only for fibers and for satiety. So meaning kanang para mabusog ka ba. And then small intestine, you have maltase, sucrase, and lactase. So anha mo continue ang digestion sa carbohydrates. So you also have pancreatic amylase produced by the pancreas, and then in large intestine, it's what happens in large intestine are the fermentation of viscous fibers. Okay, so you have water, gas, short chain fatty acid production. Okay, so let's compare the digestion of starch and fiber. So, ang starch class, as you know, it's composed of amylose and amylopectin, di ba? Ang amylose and amylopectin are glucose molecules bonded together by alpha-1,4 and then alpha-1,6 sa branching, di ba? Mao na ang amylose and amylopectin. Now, so when you eat something that has carbs, that has starch, for example, so what happens is that inside the mouth, you have salivary amylase. It's called salivary amylase because it's present in the saliva, okay? So, what it does, what the salivary amylase does, this is an enzyme, okay? Ang amylase is an enzyme. Basta, naganin na ACE class, so amylose, amylose. So, if you change the O's to ACE, it means the amylase is the enzyme that breaks down amylose. So, basta ACE ganina, it means it's the enzyme, okay? So, ang salivary amylase class will break down the starch. So, as you know, starch is a polysaccharide. It will break down the starch into smaller polysaccharides. So, iyang putlon into smaller polysaccharides. You still form polysaccharides, but now they're smaller. And it also produces maltose. So, maltose is a disaccharide. Diba? So, in the stomach, gikan sa mouth, it reaches the stomach, okay? So, in the stomach class, what happens is that ang pH sa stomach is very acidic. I think it's pH 2, di ba? So, it's very acidic that this stomach acid present in the stomach inactivates the amylase. So, since na-inactivate naman ang amylase, so it won't work anymore and it stops the starch digestion. That is why you feel full. Kay naman sa stomach, nihunong man ang digestion sa stomach, sa carbohydrates, okay? Now, from the stomach, it goes down to the small intestine. So, in the small intestine class, inside the small intestine, ang pancreas will produce an amylase. So, that's why it's called pancreatic amylase. Okay, this pancreas here, it will produce the pancreatic amylase. So, it's the enzyme from the pancreas. It's an amylase nga gikan sa pancreas. So, it will produce pancreatic amylase that will break down the starch. So, it will still break down the starch. So, same ra siya og function sa salivary amylase, except that it happens in the intestine. And that amylase is produced by the pancreas. So, it's not present in the saliva, but it's produced in the pancreas. But it's the same function. It's still amylase. So, it will break down starch into small polysaccharides and also disaccharides. So, once that happens, these disaccharides will be broken down into monosaccharides by disaccharidase enzymes. So, we have maltase, sucrase, and lactase. So, ang maltase breaks down enzyme that breaks down maltose, sucrase is the enzyme that breaks down sucrose, lactase is the enzyme that breaks down lactose, diba? So, once these enzymes acts on these disaccharides, you form glucose, fructose, and galactose because mao man ang monosaccharide ani nga mga disaccharides, diba? So once you have glucose, fructose, and galactose, then this will be the substances that will enter, that will be used up by the body. Okay, so this will this fructose, as I've said earlier, ang kining mga fructose, galactose will be converted to glucose. And then they can be stored in the body or used up to form ATP. ATP is our form of energy. Okay? Now, let's compare that with fiber. So, ang ATP here, this one, in this one, ang ATP, mauna ang nag-contribute sa caloric value. Okay? That's what contributes the caloric value. Okay? Remember, calorie is a unit for energy and ATP is the form of energy inside the body. So, kung ang energy sa environment, for example, if you have heat energy, you have solar energy. If ang energy comes from solar or geothermal, ang sa body, it's the chemical energy that comes from ATP. So, ATP ang form sa energy, not solar energy, not geothermal, something like those. But it's ATP. So that's why it also contributes to the caloric value because calorie is a unit for energy. Now, let's compare that with fiber. So if we have fiber class, if atong i-take is fiber, then inside the mouth, what happens is that the salivary amylase will not digest the fiber, but instead, what happens inside the mouth is just mechanical action, purely mechanical. So it's just the chewing and the crushing of the fiber. Okay, now it reaches the acid, the stomach. So the stomach still, in the stomach, the fiber is still not digested, and it delays gastric emptying. Okay, now after from the stomach, it reaches the small intestine. Even in the small intestine, there is no pancreatic amylase that could digest. Well, pancreatic amylase is present, but it could not digest fiber. Okay, so fiber is still not digested, and it delays the absorption of nutrients. So it goes to the large intestine, and most fiber passes intact through the digestive tract to the large intestine. Okay, so most of those fibers will just pass through the large intestine, and the bacterial enzymes will act on those fibers that will form fatty acids and gas. Okay, so as if you notice, the fiber does not produce glucose, fructose, diba? It does not produce the monosaccharides that could contribute to a caloric value. That is why ang fiber class is what is advertised as something that is good for those who are on a diet if they don't want to gain more calories. Okay, so this is what happens for absorption. So, diba, after digestion, you form the monosaccharides. This is for starch, diba? You form these monosaccharides. You have glucose, fructose, and galactose. So the monosaccharides enter the capillaries. Okay, so now when they enter the capillaries, the monosaccharides travel to the liver via the portal vein. So this portal vein, they go to the liver. Okay, now remember nga ang monosaccharides nga na-produce na to are glucose, fructose, and maltose, diba? So, galactose, sorry. Glucose, fructose, and galactose. So, they go inside the liver, and then glucose, ang katong glucose stays as is, whereas ang fructose ug ang galactose, they have to be converted into glucose first before they can be stored in the liver. Okay? So, glucose in the body is used for energy. This fuels most of the body cells because, as you know, ang glucose ang atong main source of energy. It's the form of monosaccharide that is used up by the body to produce ATP. Okay, so it can be stored as glycogen. It's stored as glycogen, and the glycogen is stored 1/3 in the liver, 1/3 of the glycogen, and then 2/3 is stored in the muscles. Then these are we also have carbohydrate. We also have glucose nga gikan sa protein. So aside from starch, aside from polysaccharides, some glucose are actually made from protein. So the process is called gluconeogenesis. Genesis meaning formation from glucose. Of glucose. Formation of glucose. And also some of this glucose, if dili na siya maso, diba, the glucose are stored as glycogen. If this glucose are, if the liver and muscles are full, some of this glucose will be converted to fat kung excess na gid kay siya sa gikinhanglan sa atong lawas. Okay, so to regulate the blood glucose class, we have these three main hormones. So there are actually more, but these three are the most important hormones. Okay, so we have especially these two. So we have insulin, glucagon, and epinephrine. Okay, so remember, these are hormones that maintain the glucose homeostasis. So this is how the blood glucose homeostasis work. So remember nga, after eating, nakay glucose nga na-produce, di ba? After the digestion. So those glucose molecules enters the bloodstream. Now this is the bloodstream, kining nasa tunga, and these are the glucose molecules. Okay? So once you eat, ang blood glucose sa bloodstream kay musaka. Diba? Kay nikaon man ka og carbohydrate rich. So, musaka ang glucose, and then, the presence of this high glucose, makastimulate siya sa pancreas nga mo produce og insulin. So, the presence, kung daghan na gani ang glucose sa bloodstream, ang pancreas, automatically, it will respond. So, murag mao ni ang stimulus, and then mao ni ang response. Ang response is that the pancreas will produce insulin. Okay, so this insulin will it's like they will tell the glucose molecules nga sulod mo sa liver because there's too much of you in the bloodstream. Okay, so you go to the liver and muscles and form glycogen. So inside the muscle, they are formed as glycogen. Okay, so musod sila sa muscle ang glucose, and then ang glucose will be formed as glycogen. Okay, so some of those 2/3 in the muscle, okay, and then 1/3 of those glucose will be converted to glycogen inside the liver. So ang uban sa liver. So that is why ang glycogen class is highly branched. If you noticed, it's highly branched because we want to put as many glucose as possible in the liver. We want to store as many glucose kay para for future use, diba? For future use, daghan ta og mapagawas nga glucose. So that's why ang glycogen is highly branched kay para dense kaayo ang masulod sa atong liver. Now, if daghan ra jud kaayo ang glucose, some of them will be converted into triglycerides and stored in the fat cells. So some of those glucose will be stored in the fat cells. That is why if excess ra jud kayo ang gikaon nato, that's why nadyoy mo bloat jud atong fat cells. That's why manambok jud atong feeling. Okay, actually manambok jud. So once these glucose enters the liver, the muscle, and fat cells, once they are converted to glycogen, the glucose in the bloodstream will decline. Diba? The glucose level will decline again. Now, this decline, this stimulus, this will stimulate the pancreas to release glucagon. So, ang glucagon, mostly na ang mo-signal sa liver nga magpagawas og glucose. So, inside the liver, you have glycogen, right? Ang glycogen, those are glucose molecules bonded together by alpha-1,4 glycosidic linkage and alpha-1,6 glycosidic linkage, diba? So you have glucose here in a polysaccharide nga form. So you have glycogen here inside the liver, and then inside the liver, once ang glucagon muingon siya sa liver nga kanang magpagawas og glucose, ang liver will break down. Inside the liver, the glycogen will be broken down into glucose and then ipagawas ang glucose. Okay, so mugawas siya as glucose. It will not go out of the liver as glycogen, but it will go out of the liver as glucose. So once mo release na og glucose ang liver, then the blood glucose begins to rise again. Okay, so this is how the glucose level in blood is maintained. So for those who have kanang diabetes, we have two types of diabetes. So we have failure of insulin production, meaning dili gid sila makaproduce og insulin. So if they cannot produce insulin, that means walay mo signal sa glucose nga musulod sa liver o sa muscle. Diba? Kaya ang insulin, this will regulate kung naay taas kaayo nga blood glucose. So if wala sila insulin nga ma-produce sa ilang body, then their blood glucose will remain high. Diba? And so that's why these people actually just inject insulin in their body. And then we have type 2 diabetes, which is caused by obesity. So this is just too much consumption of carbs. And then we have hypoglycemia and glycemic response. So this is the glycemic index we have peanuts, which is very low. And then we have white bread and baked potato, which is very high glycemic index. Okay, so ang peanuts class, actually, if you read mga health nga articles, peanuts, they say nga peanuts are good for the diet. So the sugar, if these are the health effects of sugar. So if you intake excess sugar. It could cause dental caries or tooth decay, and they do not cause these illnesses, but it can contribute to obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Okay, and we also have the recommended dietary intake. So we have 25% of total daily energy intake. So it should not be more than that ang sa sugars. Okay? So this is why fibers are good, because it lowers blood cholesterol by binding dietary cholesterol, so it is less absorbed. Okay, and also it has slow glucose absorption. It slows the glucose absorption. That is why it's good. Fibers are good for our diet. Okay, and it holds moisture in stools, so that's why it softens. Monang kung malibang ta, usually if you have high fiber diet, kung malibang ka kay murag plastic ang imong tae. And then you have lower risk of high heart disease and lower risk of diabetes. Okay? Or insoluble fiber. I sent this, I uploaded this PPT also, so you can just check these things. And then we have alternative sweeteners. So we have two categories of alternative sweeteners. We have sugar alcohols and we have artificial sweeteners. So ang sugar alcohols, these are sugars, mannose, sorbose, xylose, but instead of OH, instead of the functional group nga aldehyde nga functional group, it was replaced with alcohol. So it's mannitol, sorbitol, and xylitol. Okay, so these sugar alcohols are used as alternative sweeteners because they provide less energy than sucrose. Okay, so these are the relative sweetness, diba? Ang energy nila, it's lower compared to sucrose. And then the relative sweetness are 0.5, which means that it's 0.5 times sweeter than sucrose. Okay, this is relative to sucrose. And you have alternative sweeteners. So alternative sweeteners are not necessarily carbohydrates. So they are not necessarily, and then so we have saccharin, we have aspartame. This is advertised as NutraSweet. We have acesulfame K, and we have sucralose, which you know as Splenda. And these are the relative sweetness. So imagine ang relative sweetness sa mga sweeteners, you have 8,000. This one is 8,000 times sweeter than sucrose. So that's why you also have kanang dosage of this, okay? Proper dosage. Okay.